The text arrived at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Unknown number. 7 words that shattered my carefully constructed world. Your husband is stealing from your accounts. I stared at my phone, fingers hovering over the screen, my coffee going cold beside my laptop. The marketing presentation I'd been working on blurred into meaningless shapes. I read the message again and again. My name is Layla, and until that moment, I thought I had everything under control. The promotion I'd been chasing for 2 years, the monthly transfers to my mother's account, even my marriage to Ryan, which his parents had finally stopped criticizing, at least to my face. Hey, beautiful. Ryan's voice made me jump. He stood in the doorway of our home office, straightening his tie. You look like you've seen a ghost. I locked my phone screen. Just work stuff. The lie tasted bitter. Another impossible deadline. You'll nail it. You always do. He crossed the room, planted a kiss on my forehead. Expensive cologne. New. Don't wait up tonight. Client dinner. I watched him gather his things. The way he checked his reflection in the window. The precise arrangement of his cufflinks. Gifts from his mother, Diane. Always Diane. Which client? I asked, keeping my voice light. Thompson account. He didn't look at me. The usual crowd. I nodded, remembering last month's credit card statement. The charge from Cartier I wasn't supposed to see. The explanation about his mother's birthday gift that didn't match her birth month. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Check your investment portfolio. Start with the tech stocks. Everything okay? Ryan paused at the door. Perfect. I smiled. Just perfect. After he left, I pulled up our joint investment account. The one we'd started 3 years ago, meant for our future children. The ones his mother kept asking about at every family dinner. Her disapproval wrapped in concerned questions about my age and career choices. The numbers didn't add up. Transactions I didn't recognize. Withdrawals that shouldn't exist. My hands shook as I opened my personal savings account, the one where I kept the money for my mother's medical expenses, the account Ryan wasn't supposed to access. Fuck. The word escaped before I could stop it. $20,000. Gone. My phone rang. Mother's name lit up the screen. Layla, honey, the pharmacy called. They said the payment didn't go through. I closed my eyes, breathed. I'll handle it, Mom. Don't worry. Are you sure? You sound strange. Just tired. Another lie. I'll transfer the money right now. After hanging up, I sat in the growing darkness of the office. The house felt too big, too empty, too full of expensive furniture Diane had insisted we needed. Appearances matter, she'd said, watching me write the check. My phone lit up one final time. Meet me tomorrow, noon, Carter's Cafe on 5th. I have proof. I should have deleted the messages, should have confronted Ryan, should have done anything except what I did next. I typed, I'll be there. The cursor blinked at me like a warning. Send or delete, trust or doubt. The choice felt heavy in my fingers. I hit send. Then I opened my laptop and started searching. Bank statements, credit card bills, email receipts. Each click revealed another crack in the foundation of my marriage, another lie wrapped in Ryan's charming smile. By midnight, I had a spreadsheet of discrepancies and a folder of screenshots, but it was the last discovery that made my blood run cold. A lease agreement for an apartment across town, signed 2 months ago. I closed my laptop and walked to our bedroom. Ryan's side of the closet told its own story. Gaps where certain suits should be, empty spaces on the shoe rack. Tomorrow at noon, I'd learn the rest. But tonight, as I lay in our bed, staring at the ceiling he'd insisted we paint the exact shade of gray his mother recommended, I realized something that should have terrified me, but instead filled me with an odd sense of calm. I was ready to burn it all down. The doorbell chimed just as I was about to leave for Carter's Cafe. Diane stood on my doorstep, designer handbag clutched like a shield, perfect smile already in place. Surprise, darling. She breezed past me into the foyer, her perfume leaving a trail of expensive judgment. I thought we could have a little chat. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably my mysterious informant, wondering where I was. I'm actually heading out. Nonsense. I brought those macarons you pretend to like. She was already settling onto the sofa, arranging herself like a queen holding court. Ryan mentioned you've seemed distracted lately. Of course he had. I perched on the edge of the armchair, watching her unpack a pristine pastry box, every movement precise, calculated, like a spider spinning its web. Work's been demanding, I said, checking my phone. 12:07 p.m. A message glowed on the screen. Where are you? Always work with you. Diane sighed, pushing a macaron toward me. I do worry about your priorities. Ryan needs a proper home life, especially now. Especially now? She paused, a flicker of something crossing her face. Well, with his new position coming up, the board's watching closely. Appearances matter more than ever. New position. The words hit like ice water. Ryan hadn't mentioned any promotion. When did this happen? Oh, her smile tightened. I assumed he'd told you. Perhaps he was waiting for the right moment. You understand how these things work, dear. Discretion is everything. My phone buzzed again. 12:15 p.m. Speaking of discretion, Diane continued, I noticed some unusual charges on the family account, the one George set up for Ryan's investment opportunities. My fingers clenched around my phone. I wasn't aware of any family account. No? She tilted her head, studying me like a curious specimen. How strange. Ryan assured us you were fully informed, managing it together even. The room felt suddenly too small, too full of Diane's carefully chosen furniture and calculated concern. I stood up. I really need to go. Layla, her voice sharpened. Sit down. We're not finished. For a moment, I saw myself through her eyes. The charity case who'd trapped her precious son. The girl from the wrong side of town who'd never quite learned to properly arrange flowers or choose the right wine. I walked to the door and opened it. Actually, we are. She gathered her things with deliberate slowness. You know, dear, marriage requires sacrifice, compromise, understanding that sometimes men need certain freedoms to achieve their potential. The implications hung in the air like poison. Does that include freedom with my mother's medication money? Her step faltered, almost imperceptible. I'm sure I don't know what you mean. No? I smiled, channeling her own practiced condescension. How strange. She paused at the threshold, perfectly manicured hand gripping her bag. Just remember, darling, Ryan has his whole future ahead of him. It would be unfortunate if anything were to derail that. After she left, I checked my phone again. 12:30 p.m. 3 missed messages. Still waiting. Important information about the apartment lease. Last chance. Tomorrow, same time. I sank against the wall, pieces clicking into place. The family account, the promotion, the apartment, Ryan's careful lies, and Diane's calculated visit. My phone rang, Ryan's office number. Hey, beautiful, he said when I answered. Mother mentioned she stopped by. Everything okay? I thought of the spreadsheets hidden on my laptop, the screenshots, the missing money. Perfect, I lied. She brought macarons. That's my girl. His relief was palpable. Listen, I've got news, big news. Dinner tonight? Can't wait. I ended the call and opened my messages. To the unknown number. Tomorrow, noon. I'll be there. Then I opened my laptop and started a new spreadsheet. this one titled Family Account. At the top, I typed a single question. How long had Diane known about the affair? Because that's the thing about sacrifice and compromise. They work both ways. And I was done being the only one making them. In the kitchen, Diane's macarons sat untouched, perfect and poisonous as everything else in this house she'd helped build. I dropped them in the trash, one by one, watching their pristine shells crack and crumble. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. I followed Ryan's silver Mercedes through rain-slicked streets, keeping 3 cars between us. His late meeting had taken him across town, far from his office, to a modern apartment complex I'd never seen before. The security guard waved him through. I parked across the street, engine idling, watching him stride into the lobby like he owned it, like he belonged here, in this other life he'd built. My mysterious informant had been right about everything. The apartment lease, the promotion, the family account. Now I just needed to see it with my own eyes. 20 minutes later, a woman joined him. Tall, elegant, younger than me. They embraced in the lobby, comfortable, familiar. When they kissed, I felt nothing. Just a hollow space where shock should have been. My phone buzzed. Ryan's face lit up the screen. I let it ring, watching them disappear into the elevator together. The lobby door opened smoothly when I tried it. No security check, no questions. The universe making things easy for once. Floor? The elderly man in the elevator asked. I remembered the lease agreement. 12. The hallway was silent except for my heartbeat and muffled laughter from 12B, his apartment, their apartment. I stood there, hand raised to knock, when the door opened. The woman froze, wine glass halfway to her lips. Can I help you? Natalie, right? My voice sounded strange, distant. Ryan's mentioned you. From work. Recognition flickered across her face. Then horror. Oh God, you're his wife. I stepped inside before she could stop me. The apartment was a mirror of our home. Same color scheme, same tasteful art. Diane's influence, even here. Ryan emerged from the bedroom, shirt unbuttoned. Babe, did you find the Layla? Don't stop on my account. I moved to the kitchen counter where receipts lay scattered. Cartier, restaurants, hotels. Quite the paper trail you've left. Natalie set down her wine glass with shaking hands. Ryan, you said you were separated. You said, he lies. I picked up a receipt about everything. The separation, the money, probably even his promotion. Ryan stepped forward, hands raised. I can explain. The family account, I continued, the one you and Diane used to drain my savings? Or maybe you'd like to explain my mother's medication money? Natalie's face went pale. What medication money? Layla, stop. Ryan's charm vanished, replaced by something harder. You're embarrassing yourself. No. Natalie backed away from him. She needs to talk. I need to hear this. I pulled out my phone, opened the spreadsheet. 20,000 from my personal account. 40,000 from our joint investments, all traced to the family account Diane pretends I knew about. You're twisting things. Ryan's voice rose. Making accusations. Show her the lease agreement, I cut in. The one with both your signatures. Tell her about the trust fund you used as collateral. The one your parents set up for our future children. Natalie's horror turned to rage. Children? You said you never wanted. Both of you need to leave. Ryan grabbed my arm. Now. I wrenched away. Don't touch me. Or what? He sneered. You'll tell Mommy? Run crying to Diane about how mean I am? That's your problem, Layla. You never understood how things work, the compromises people make. Compromises? Natalie's laugh was bitter. Is that what you call this? Stay out of it. Ryan rounded on her. You're just as guilty. Taking gifts, playing house. Playing house? I gestured around the apartment. Like this shrine to your mother's taste? Does Diane know about this place? Or just the money you're spending on it? Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Get out. Gladly. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Ryan, check your email. I sent copies of everything to the board. Every transaction, every receipt, every lie. You wouldn't dare. I already did. I looked at Natalie. Check your inbox, too. You deserve to know exactly who you've been sleeping with. The elevator ride down was a blur. In the lobby, my phone exploded with notifications. Ryan, Diane, unknown numbers. I blocked them all. Outside, the rain had stopped. I stood on the sidewalk, breathing in the clean air, feeling lighter than I had in years. My phone buzzed one last time. Natalie, we need to talk. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed, tomorrow, noon, Carter's Cafe. Because sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone. Sometimes it's about building something new from the ashes of their lies. And I was just getting started. Natalie was already waiting at Carter's Cafe when I arrived, her fingers drumming against a manila envelope. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, matching the untouched coffee in front of her. I found more. She slid the envelope across the table. Bank statements, wire transfers, emails between Ryan and the board. It's worse than we thought. Inside were documents I'd never seen before. Transactions that made my stolen $20,000 look like pocket change. How did you get these? I'm his executive assistant, remember? Her laugh was hollow. The perfect cover for his perfect lie. I handled everything, including the offshore accounts Diane set up. The cafe's warmth suddenly felt stifling. Diane? She's been orchestrating all of it. The promotion, the accounts, even… Natalie's voice cracked. Even me. She hired me specifically for Ryan, said he needed someone who understood the importance of discretion. My phone buzzed. Mother's name lit up the screen. I ignored it, focusing on the papers in front of me. There's something else. Natalie lowered her voice. Your mother's medical insurance? It wasn't just canceled. It was deliberately terminated. Diane made sure of it. The world tilted sideways. When? 6 months ago, right after you mentioned wanting to start a family. My phone buzzed again. This time I answered. Mom? Layla? Her voice was tight with pain. The hospital called. They're saying my coverage was canceled months ago. All my treatments, the medications, they're saying I owe them thousands. The papers in my hands blurred. I'll handle it. Just give me an hour. After hanging up, I looked at Natalie. Why are you helping me? She pulled out her own phone, opened a photo. A woman in a hospital bed, thin and frail. My sister, cancer. Ryan knew. It's why I took the job. The health insurance. Her fingers clenched around the phone. Diane knew too. Understanding clicked into place. They used us both, not just us. She produced another document. Remember George's gambling problem? The one that supposedly ended years ago? Diane's been using it to control him, which means controlling Ryan. It's all connected. The cafe door chimed. George himself walked in, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Mind if I join you? He didn't wait for an answer, sliding into the booth. Diane's at the house, with Ryan. They're discussing options. Options? The word tasted bitter. Damage control. He gestured to our papers, though I suspect it's too late for that. Natalie started gathering the documents, but George raised a hand. Don't bother. I'm not here to stop you. He pulled out his own envelope. I'm here to help. Inside were years of financial records, properties in Diane's name, shell companies, a pattern of manipulation that stretched back decades. Why now? I asked. Because I'm tired. He looked at his hands. And because she's using the same playbook on Ryan she used on me, the same one she'll use on your children, if you have them. My phone lit up with a text from Ryan. Come home, we need to talk. Mother has a solution. She always has a solution, George said, reading the message upside down. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I looked at the evidence spread across the table. At Natalie, who'd lost as much as I had. At George, who'd spent decades under Diane's thumb. First, I said, I'm going to help my mother. Then, I'm going to burn it all down. They'll fight back, Natalie warned. Let them. I gathered the documents, combining all our evidence into one devastating file. I'm done playing by their rules. George nodded slowly. I'll testify. About everything. The board needs to know the truth. My phone buzzed again. Ryan, Mother's waiting. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I thought of my mother, alone at the hospital, of Natalie's sister, of all the lives Diane had casually destroyed in service of her perfect facade. Tell them I'm coming, I said, standing up, but not alone, because that's the thing about revenge. Sometimes it's not just about one person's justice. Sometimes it's about breaking a cycle that's hurt too many people for too long, and we were finally ready to break it. The board meeting room felt like a tomb, all mahogany and muted lighting. I sat between Natalie and George, watching Ryan pace at the head of the table, his perfect facade cracking with each passing minute. These accusations are ridiculous, he said, but his voice wavered. My wife is clearly disturbed. Your wife, Board Director Chen interrupted, has provided extensive documentation of financial misconduct. She tapped the thick folder before her, including evidence of unauthorized transfers from client accounts. Diane burst through the doors, perfectly coiffed despite the early hour. This is a family matter. It should be handled privately. Like you handled my mother's medical insurance? The words shot out before I could stop them. Or Natalie's sister's treatment? Ryan froze mid-pace. What are you talking about? Show him. I nodded to Natalie, who slid a document across the table. Your mother's signature, canceling my mother's coverage, right after I mentioned wanting children. Mother? Ryan's face went pale. You said that was a clerical error. Everything I did was to protect you. Diane's mask slipped, revealing something desperate underneath. That woman and her family would have dragged you down, just like me? George spoke for the first time. Tell them, Diane. Tell them what you did to keep me in line all these years. The board members leaned forward, sharks scenting blood. Director Chen's pen scratched against her notepad. This is absurd. Diane's laugh was brittle. Ryan, tell them. Tell them what? I stood up, spreading out the offshore account records. About the shell companies? The embezzled client funds? Or should we discuss the real reason for Natalie's hiring? Ryan's eyes darted between his mother and me. I never meant to get caught. Natalie's voice was ice, or to destroy lives. Enough! Diane slammed her hand on the table. I can fix this. I always fix everything. Not this time. Director Chen closed her folder. Security will escort you all out. The police have been notified. Police? Ryan stumbled backward. Mother, do something. But Diane was already moving, her designer bag clutched like a shield. This isn't over, Layla. You have no idea what you've done. Actually, I do. I pulled out my phone, played the recording of our last conversation. Her voice filled the room, detailing exactly how she'd orchestrated everything. The affair, the fraud, the medical insurance cancellation. You recorded me? Her face contorted. In my own home? I learned from the best. I turned to the board. There's more about the Thompson account, the missing pension funds. Stop. Ryan's whisper cut through the chaos. Please, Layla, stop. For a moment, I saw him clearly. The scared little boy beneath the polished exterior. The son who'd never been good enough for his mother's impossible standards. But then I thought of my own mother, struggling to pay for treatments that should have been covered. Of Natalie's sister fighting cancer while this family played their games. The time for stopping was before you stole from people who trusted you, I said. Before you let your mother destroy lives to protect your precious image. Security appeared at the doors. Director Chen nodded toward them. Mrs. Henderson, you and your associates may stay. The rest of you will need to leave. As they led Ryan and Diane out, he looked back once. I did love you, you know, in my way. I know. I met his gaze. That's what makes it worse. The doors closed behind them. George squeezed my hand once, then followed security out. In the sudden quiet, Director Chen cleared her throat. Mrs. Henderson, about your mother's medical bills. The company will cover everything, Natalie cut in, including back payments and future treatments, for both our families. She smiled grimly. It's the least they can do, considering. I sank back into my chair, the weight of the past few weeks finally hitting me. My phone buzzed, a message from my mother. Whatever happens, I'm proud of you. Revenge, I was learning, wasn't just about destruction. Sometimes it was about reconstruction, building something better from the ashes of what was lost. But first, there was one more conversation I needed to have, with the person who'd sent that first anonymous text, warning me about Ryan, because somehow I had a feeling I knew exactly who it was. Carter's cafe was empty, except for George, sitting in the same booth where this had all started. The same envelope from our first meeting lay on the table, but now it was weathered, worn at the edges. You sent the first text, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. You started all of this. He pushed a coffee toward me. Black, no sugar. Like he'd been watching, learning my habits all along. Someone had to stop them. Why not do it yourself? Would you have believed me? He opened the envelope, revealing photos I hadn't seen before. Would anyone have believed the gambling addict who couldn't control his own wife? The photos showed younger versions of Diane and Ryan, standing over George as he signed papers. Documentation of decades of manipulation, carefully preserved by the man who'd enabled it all. They're pressing charges, I said, against Ryan and Diane. The board wants you to testify. I know. He stared into his coffee. Diane's lawyer called this morning, offered a deal. My stomach clenched. What kind of deal? If I testify that you orchestrated everything, the fraud, the embezzlement, all of it, they'll drop the gambling debt. Clean slate. The cafe's quiet hum seemed to fade away. And if you don't, they release evidence of my involvement in older schemes, things that could put me away for years. He pulled out another document. They're thorough, Layla. Always have been. My phone buzzed. A text from Natalie. Ryan's claiming I helped you frame him. His lawyer has emails. Then another from my mother. Diane just left. Says she has proof you've been stealing from me for years. They're trying to destroy you, George said softly, like they destroyed me, like they destroy everyone who threatens their control. I thought of the board meeting, my moment of triumph. How naive I'd been to think it would end there. What are you going to do? I asked. What I've always done. He stood up, straightening his jacket. Protect my family. Even now, after everything? Especially now. He placed a hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, Layla. I truly am. I watched him walk out, taking my last hope of justice with him. My phone kept buzzing, messages from lawyers, board members, friends suddenly questioning everything they thought they knew about me. The barista approached with fresh coffee. Rough day? I looked at the cup, remembered all the mornings Ryan had brought me coffee, his charm hiding the poison beneath. How many others had he smiled at while twisting the knife? They're going to win, I whispered, more to myself than her. They always win. My phone lit up again. Ryan's name. Come home. We can fix this. Together. For a moment, I saw the path of least resistance. Go home. Accept his version of events. Let Diane smooth everything over with her connections and money. Return to the life where appearances mattered more than truth. The coffee burned my tongue, bitter and real. I opened my photos, found the one I'd taken of my mother in the hospital, struggling to pay for treatments that should have been covered. Added it to a message to Director Chen. Before you believe their story, remember who the real victims are. Then I called Natalie. How's your sister? Fighting. Her voice was tired but determined. Like we should be. They're coming for us. Let them. Papers rustled in the background. I kept copies of everything, Layla. Everything. And I know where the rest of the bodies are buried. I thought of George, walking away to protect his twisted version of family. Of Ryan, thinking he could still charm his way out of consequences. Of Diane, who'd spent decades perfecting the art of destruction. We're going to lose everything, I said. Maybe. Natalie paused. Or maybe we'll finally show them what it feels like to lose instead. I looked at my reflection in the cafe window, saw someone I barely recognized, someone who'd thought revenge would be clean, simple, just. But justice, I was learning, was messier than revenge, and sometimes the only way forward was through the fire. I picked up my phone one last time, typed a message to Ryan. You're right. Let's fix this. Your house. Tonight. Bring everyone. Because if I was going down, I was taking their whole empire with me, even if it meant burning in the flames myself. The dining room in Ryan's house felt smaller than I remembered. Maybe it was the weight of all the lies that had accumulated here, pressing in on the expensive wallpaper Diane had chosen years ago. They sat around the table like a parody of family dinner. Ryan at the head, Diane to his right, George slumped beside her. The empty chair beside me felt like an accusation. Well? Ryan spread his hands. You wanted to talk. Let's talk. I placed my phone on the table, screen dark, but recording. I found your other accounts, the ones even Diane doesn't know about. His smile flickered. Diane's hand tightened around her wine glass. More accusations? She sighed. Really, Layla, this vendetta of yours? Show them, I said to the doorway. Natalie stepped in, carrying a laptop. Behind her, my mother entered, straight-backed and steady despite everything they'd put her through. What is this? Ryan stood. You weren't supposed to bring backup? I smiled. Like the backup you had when you canceled my mother's insurance or when you forged those transfer documents. Natalie opened the laptop, turned it toward them. Spreadsheets filled the screen, transactions highlighted in damning red. That's not possible. Diane's voice cracked. Those records were destroyed. You mean these records? George pulled out an envelope. The ones I've been collecting for 20 years? Ryan's face went white. Father? I'm done protecting you. George's hands shook as he spread out decades of evidence. Both of you. You ungrateful. Diane lunged for the papers, but my mother stepped forward, blocking her path. Touch those documents, Mom said quietly, and the police officers waiting outside come in. The room froze. I could almost hear the calculations running behind Ryan's eyes, the desperate search for escape. You're bluffing, he said finally. I played the recording from my phone. Director Chen's voice filled the room. Officers are in position, Mrs. Henderson. Just give the signal. It's over, I said. The board knows everything. The police have your offshore accounts. Even your mother can't fix this. Can I? Diane stood, all pretense gone. You have no idea what I'm capable of, what I've done to protect this family. Like protecting me? Ryan's laugh was hollow. By choosing my wife, controlling my career, making me into this, everything I did was for you. No. He looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time. It was for you. Always for you. Natalie clicked through more documents. The board's freezing all accounts. They're cooperating with the investigation. Investigation? Diane sneered. Into what? A wife's jealous accusations? Into 2 decades of fraud. George's voice was tired. Into everything we built on other people's pain. Ryan turned to me, charm replacing rage like flipping a switch. Layla, please, we can still fix this. Together, like we always. Don't. The word cut through his manipulation. Don't you dare pretend there was ever a we in your plans. My phone buzzed. Director Chen. Officers moving in. Last chance, I said. Confess. Make it easier on yourselves. Or what? Diane's smile was vicious. You'll destroy this family? No. I stood up as police sirens wailed outside. You already did that yourself. The front door burst open. Officers flooded in, reading rights, securing evidence. Through it all, Ryan just stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. Maybe he was. I did love you, he said as they cuffed him. In the beginning. I know. I watched them lead him away. But you loved your mother's approval more. Diane fought, of course, screamed about lawyers and connections until they closed the patrol car door. George went quietly, shoulders bent but somehow lighter. In the aftermath, my mother touched my arm. You okay? I looked around the dining room, at the evidence of a life built on lies. The photos on the walls, the carefully curated memories. No, I said honestly. But I will be. Natalie gathered the last of the documents. What now? I thought of all the other families they'd destroyed, the lives they'd ruined with their games and manipulation. Now? I picked up my phone, dialed Director Chen. Now, we make sure they can never do this to anyone else. Because revenge wasn't just about destruction. Sometimes it was about protection, about making sure the cycle of pain finally stopped, even if it meant burning everything down to build something better from the ashes. The courtroom emptied slowly, leaving me alone with the echo of the judge's verdict. Guilty on all counts, no deals, no reduced sentences, justice served cold and clean. My phone buzzed. Natalie's sister had finished her last round of treatment, paid for by the company's restitution fund, along with my mother's medical bills and dozens of other lives Ryan and Diane had tried to destroy. I gathered my things, avoiding the media crowd outside. They'd gotten their headlines. Family empire falls, mother-son fraud ring exposed, justice served in Henderson case. But headlines couldn't capture the weight of George's testimony, the way his voice shook as he detailed decades of manipulation, or Diane's face when her perfectly constructed world finally shattered, or Ryan's last attempt at charm, failing him when he needed it most. The cafe across from the courthouse was quiet. I chose a booth by the window, ordered black coffee out of habit. Mind if I join you? George stood there, looking older and younger somehow, free. How's prison treating them? I asked as he sat down. Diane's already running the library program. Ryan's... He stirred his coffee endlessly, learning to live without her shadow. And you? Gambling addiction meetings twice a week, community service. It's peaceful. My phone lit up with a text from my mother. Dinner tonight? Made your favorite. You know, George said, watching me smile at the message. Revenge was supposed to feel better than this. Was it revenge, though? I looked out at the courthouse steps where I'd first received that anonymous text. Or just consequences finally catching up. The barista brought fresh coffee, reminding me of all those mornings with Ryan, his lies hidden behind perfect lattes and practiced smiles. I got a letter from him, I said. Wanted to know if I ever really loved him. Did you answer? Still deciding. I pulled out the unopened envelope. Some questions don't have clean answers. George nodded, understanding in his eyes. Diane asks about you. Says she could have made you great if you just played by her rules. I'm already great. The words came easily now. Just not by her definition. My phone buzzed again. Natalie, board approved the whistleblower protection program. We're helping others come forward. You're rebuilding something, George observed, from the ashes of what we destroyed. We all are. I stood up, leaving Ryan's letter on the table. That's the thing about revenge. Sometimes it's not about destroying what's broken. It's about making sure nothing that broken ever gets built again. Outside, the autumn air carried possibilities instead of regrets. My mother was waiting at home, healing and whole. Natalie's sister was cancer-free. The company's victims were getting justice, one restitution check at a time. Layla, George called after me. The night I sent that first text, I thought I was giving you a weapon, but you turned it into something else. A foundation, I said, for something better. He smiled, sad and proud and free. Yes, exactly that. I walked away from the cafe, leaving the letter behind. Some questions didn't need answers. Some revenge didn't need completion. Sometimes justice was enough, messy and imperfect and real. My phone buzzed one last time. An unknown number. Thank you for showing us the way out. R. I deleted it without responding. The past could keep its mysteries. I had a future to build, one that didn't need revenge or validation or perfectly arranged dinner parties to be whole. Because that's the thing about burning it all down. You get to choose what rises from the ashes, and I was choosing something that couldn't be controlled or manipulated or bought. I was choosing truth. Messy, complicated, beautiful truth. And that was better than revenge any day. The autumn wind caught my hair as I walked home, carrying away the last echoes of Diane's criticism, Ryan's lies, and my own need for vengeance. Ahead, my mother's cooking waited, and Natalie's plans for helping others, and 1,000 small moments of justice yet to come. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was real, and real was all I needed it to be.